Have you ever wondered how events thousands of miles away can directly affect your daily life? A major conflict in the Middle East isn't just a headline, it's a powerful force that reshapes global politics, economics, and security, touching everyone from world leaders to everyday citizens. Understanding these impacts is crucial for navigating our interconnected world. The Middle East is a geopolitical crossroads, rich in vital resources and steeped in complex history. When conflict erupts there, its effects don't stay contained within borders. Instead, they ripple outwards, influencing everything from global oil prices to international alliances and even the safety of shipping lanes. This region's stability is intrinsically linked to global stability. What happens in the Middle East can directly impact your gas prices, the cost of goods, and even the focus of your nation's foreign policy. It's a stark reminder of how interconnected our world truly is. The United States has deep, long-standing strategic commitments in the Middle East. These commitments involve significant military presence and diplomatic efforts. A major conflict places immense strain on these resources and personnel. Currently, the U.S. maintains approximately 40,000 troops across the region. Key bases in Bahrain, Qatar, and Kuwait serve as vital hubs for operations. Conflicts often necessitate rapid deployments, such as sending aircraft carriers and advanced missile defense systems to protect allies. Proxy warfare is another significant challenge. Iranian-backed militias like the Houthis and Hezbollah frequently target U.S. forces. Over 160 attacks were recorded in Iraq and Syria between 2023 and 2024 alone. This constant threat strains military resources and tragically risks American lives, as seen in the drone strike in Jordan that killed 3 soldiers. Economically, escalations in the Middle East have immediate global consequences. Oil prices can spike dramatically. A $10 per barrel increase can raise global inflation by 0.7%. Shipping disruptions like those in the Red Sea have caused freight costs to soar by 260% in 2024. These costs are ultimately passed on to consumers worldwide. The U.S. faces a delicate balancing act. It must protect its interests and allies while avoiding direct, large-scale military entanglement. This strategic challenge impacts taxpayer money, military readiness, and the overall focus of American foreign policy. Russia often views Middle East instability as an opportunity to expand its influence. It leverages conflicts to strengthen its diplomatic ties and boost its arms sales. For example, Russia has sold advanced S-300 missile systems to Iran. Its support for the previous Assad regime in Syria solidified a crucial Mediterranean foothold. This strategic presence allows Russia to project power and challenge Western influence in the region. It's a key part of Russia's broader geopolitical strategy. As a major oil and gas exporter, Russia also benefits from rising energy prices. Instability in the Middle East drives up global energy costs, which can offset the impact of Western sanctions on Russia's economy. This provides Moscow with additional resources to fund its own strategic objectives. Russia also engages in proxy activities, utilizing groups like the Wagner Group and Syrian paramilitaries. This allows it to project power without direct military confrontation with NATO forces. However, this approach carries risks of overextension and unintended escalation. China's primary concern in the Middle East is its immense energy dependence. Approximately 50% of China's oil imports originate from this volatile region. Conflicts directly threaten these vital supply chains, posing a significant risk to China's economic stability and growth. To mitigate these risks, China is actively diversifying its energy sources and investing heavily in infrastructure projects. Its Belt and Road Initiative includes significant investments in the Middle East, aiming to secure trade routes and energy supplies. This strategy reflects China's long-term economic and strategic planning. China generally adheres to a non-intervention policy, avoiding direct military entanglement in regional conflicts. However, it actively expands its economic ties, including arms sales to Gulf states like Saudi Arabia and infrastructure deals with Iran. This approach allows China to maintain influence without taking sides militarily. Beijing engages in a delicate strategic balancing act. It supports Iran economically while simultaneously fostering strong trade relations with Gulf states. This dual approach risks U.S. backlash, particularly concerning transfers of dual-use technology that could have military applications. China's actions in the Middle East are a key indicator of its evolving global role. The impacts of Middle East conflicts extend far beyond the immediate region and the major military powers. They reshape global alliances, raise the specter of nuclear proliferation, and divert crucial resources from domestic priorities worldwide. These broader implications affect every nation and every citizen. Alliance dynamics are constantly tested. Close U.S.-Israel coordination, such as joint strikes on Iran, can strain relations with Arab states like Saudi Arabia. These shifts in alliances can create new geopolitical fault lines and complicate international cooperation on other global issues. The risk of nuclear proliferation is a grave concern. Attacks on Iranian nuclear sites like Natanz could push Tehran closer to developing nuclear weapons. This would severely destabilize non-proliferation efforts globally, potentially triggering a regional arms race. The implications for global security are profound and terrifying. Increased defense spending is another direct consequence. Nations like the US and Gulf states significantly boost their military budgets in response to heightened tensions. This diverts substantial funds from critical domestic priorities such as education, healthcare, and infrastructure. It's a trade-off that impacts the quality of life for millions. The escalating tensions between Israel and Iran represent a critical flashpoint in the Middle East. This decades-old conflict, once simmering, has rapidly heated up, leading to direct military engagements. Understanding the motivations and consequences is vital for grasping the broader regional instability. Israel's recent strikes against Iran were driven by a complex calculus. Intelligence suggested Iran was dangerously advancing its nuclear enrichment program and had resumed weapons group activity. Israel saw a narrow window of opportunity to exploit perceived Iranian weakness and delay its nuclear ambitions. The objective was not complete destruction of Iran's nuclear program, which would likely require U.S. involvement. Instead, Israel aimed to significantly delay it, potentially by at least a year. This involves striking facilities, assassinating key nuclear scientists, and damaging critical sites. However, without striking the heavily fortified Fordo enrichment facility, a complete halt remains elusive. Iran's response has been forceful, though perhaps not as overwhelming as some anticipated. It retaliated with hundreds of ballistic missiles and drones, targeting Israel in Operation Severe Punishment. However, Israel's military and intelligence superiority has largely mitigated the impact, demonstrating its robust defense capabilities. Concerns about environmental and health impacts from attacks on nuclear facilities are significant. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, has reiterated that nuclear facilities must never be attacked, regardless of circumstances. While initial reports indicated no elevated radiation levels at impacted sites, the long-term risks of such strikes are immense and unpredictable. The IAEA's stance highlights a critical principle of international law. Attacks against nuclear facilities, even those suspected of non-peaceful purposes, set a dangerous precedent. They make it increasingly difficult to de-escalate conflicts and can have catastrophic, widespread consequences for human health and the environment. The alignment between Washington and Jerusalem is strong on goals, but sometimes differs on means. Both the US and Israel aim to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons and to counter regional threats. However, the US often seeks diplomatic solutions, while Israel has shown a greater willingness for direct military action. This conflict has undoubtedly complicated the prospects for a US nuclear deal with Iran. Negotiations were already at an impasse, with Iran refusing to give up enrichment. The breadth of Israeli strikes targeting nuclear infrastructure and military officials may push Tehran towards a nuclear breakout rather than compromise. Washington's force posture in the Middle East has shifted significantly. The Pentagon has approved large deployments of aerial refueling tankers and extended carrier strike group presence. These moves provide the U.S. with flexible military options, enhancing its ability to support Israel and respond to regional contingencies. The conflict has also revealed the weakened state of Iran's regional proxies. Groups like Hamas and Hezbollah have suffered significant degradation. While they retain some capabilities, their overall effectiveness and willingness to engage in large-scale conflict appear diminished. This impacts Iran's ability to project power through non-state actors. For Palestinians in Gaza, the conflict brings immense fear and uncertainty. There is concern that an Israel-Iran war will distract from the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, potentially leading to even more impunity and escalation of Israeli bombardment. Many fear a prolonged war and increased suffering. Some Palestinians, however, hope that the weakening of Iran's regime could ultimately benefit them. They view Tehran as responsible for much of the destruction through its support of Hamas. A weakened Iran might lead to a more stable regional environment, potentially paving the way for future peace. Russia's position is complex. It could benefit from U.S. attention shifting away from Ukraine and from rising oil prices. However, it also faces the risk of regime collapse in Iran, a long-standing ally. Putin's calls for diplomatic resolution reflect a desire to avoid further instability that could undermine Russia's own strategic interests. China, too, navigates a delicate path. While condemning Israel's attack, Beijing sees an opportunity to promote itself as a responsible actor and potential mediator. A wider conflict would threaten its vital energy interests, making de-escalation a priority. China also uses the situation to amplify perceived U.S. failings, aiming to undermine American global influence. The weapons deployed by both sides highlight the advanced nature of modern warfare. Israel has used F-35I, F-15I, and F-16 aircraft, deploying precision munitions like GBU-28, bunker busters, and Rampage missiles. Iran has retaliated with various ballistic missiles, including Fatah hypersonic missiles and unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs. The counterproliferation implications are severe. The IAEA declared Iran non-compliant with the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty, NPT, for the first time in 20 years. Iran responded by threatening NPT withdrawal and announcing a third enrichment site. This conflict risks paradoxically accelerating proliferation, as Iran's irreversible knowledge of enrichment could lead it to rebuild with greater determination. Israel has targeted Iranian oil and gas facilities, including natural gas processing plants and a major fuel depot near Tehran. These strikes impact Iran's domestic energy supply, potentially leading to blackouts and hindering internal logistics. However, Israel has largely avoided striking major oil production facilities or the critical Karg Island export terminal, thus minimizing immediate global oil market disruption. The Strait of Hormuz remains a critical choke point. Approximately 20% of the world's seaborne crude oil exports pass through this narrow waterway. While Iran could temporarily disrupt traffic, a complete closure is unlikely, as it would severely impact Iran's own oil exports, which are vital for its economy. Any disruption, however, would cause immediate oil price spikes. Domestically, the Iranian regime appears to be maintaining unity, but public anger is growing. While initial strikes might foster a rally around the flag effect, continued military pressure could weaken the regime's security and governmental structures. The public is frustrated by the lack of protection and the economic hardship, which could eventually undermine stability. The Iranian public's response is varied. While regime supporters are outraged, many Iranians oppose the government and express sorrow for civilian casualties. The strikes have stirred traumatic memories of past wars. Many Iranians do not want war and are angry at their government for failing to protect them, fearing further suffering. In Israel, the public largely supports the government's actions, viewing the strikes as necessary to counter Iran's nuclear threat. Despite severe casualties on the Israeli home front, there is a sense of confidence in the government's ability to manage the campaign. This public support is crucial for sustaining military operations. Looking ahead, the stakes are incredibly high. Israel indicates it has more targets, broadening its campaign beyond nuclear sites to energy infrastructure and government buildings. Netanyahu has even suggested that regime change could be a result of Israel's actions, believing the Iranian regime is weak. Iranian leaders, in turn, feel compelled to demonstrate their ability to inflict punishment on Israel to maintain credibility and prevent internal unrest. The conflict's trajectory will heavily depend on whether a temporary halt can be engineered and if either side achieves its strategic objectives. The U.S. remains a wild card. President Trump's stance on whether to let the two sides fight it out or press for de-escalation will be critical. Even if a temporary halt is achieved, a comprehensive nuclear deal with Iran seems unlikely, meaning conflict between the two nations will likely dominate the Middle East agenda for the foreseeable future. The conflicts in the Middle East are not distant events. They are deeply intertwined with global stability, economic well-being, and international security. Understanding these complex dynamics is essential for every citizen. From the price of gas to the risk of nuclear proliferation, these events directly impact your life and the world your children will inherit. Stay informed, engage in thoughtful discussions, and support this channel by subscribing. Your awareness and participation are vital in shaping a more secure and prosperous future for all. Please like and share.